Okay. All right. Let's try it again. T-square. Make sure this thing's seated nice and tight this way and up against the edge. And then, so this becomes a little harder with the thinner paper, but you can still do it. Roll it up a little bit, but don't crease. You're looking for neatness on your drafting. At first you're not. At first you're just kind of looking for sketches and for them to be able to take what's in the book and bring it out here in different views. And we'll do that too. We'll sketch one and then we'll draw one. I pull this thing down here. When I do, I can feel this line hit the bottom, top of my T-square. These folded up edges keep it from slipping underneath. So I can pull that down lightly and tape a corner here. I can tape a corner here. And then I come from the top down to the bottom and I compare and make sure that I've got an even amount of white sticking out of my clear. And that's going to tell me my paper's square, basically. If it was really askew, then of course you know that it wasn't square, so you pull it up and restart it. Check, make sure I didn't move anything, and then I'll go ahead and I'll do it one more time. Okay, so the first rule of thumb, the T-square is only a horizontal drawing surface. It doesn't do anything vertically. If you want to do anything vertically, you want to try to use your other squares, your 30, 60, 90 square, and your 45. So I like to use this one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in a 1/4 inch on all of my edges, and this is going to be my my page setup. Okay, so I have it a 1/4 here. I got a 1/4 there. And have you been working with them on measuring?
Yeah.
Cool. How are they doing on that?
I mean, they did good. We went through it, like gave them 2 tests. First one was a little free.
And
Second one was better.
And you can see, we've been measuring all week for the last 2 weeks. Measuring and print reading, and I started to dabble in the lathe a little bit. So these lines that we're drawing right here are border lines. Border lines are generally your thickest lines. And all you're really looking to do with these kids is to get them warmed up and show them that they can do good clean work. See how the corners are coming together? And that's what you want. You want to kind of, I don't know, encourage that. Neat work is usually more accurate work. Erase anything that's not necessary. So the white erasers really work well.
I got some.
Yeah, they work real well. And I always have to pass them around to students. Because they just never get them. So the next thing I'm going to do is make a title block. And this is a pretty simple one. We come up 3/8 of an inch for our title block. And I draw it across here. And then you could have them come over 2 inches. Let's just say for today it's 3, and then I'm going to come from the right 3 inches. And once again, all my vertical lines are going to be made with my triangles. And what I usually have is have them put their name on the left one, and most of us are scribblers. We write really fast. So I make them slow down, or I ask them to slow down and do really good work. You've got multiple hours, so I have them put the hour that you have, and then whatever their drawing is. So if the drawing in the book's like page 125, figure 1, then I would write page 125, figure 1. Yeah. So
Like not the actual title of it.
yeah, I wouldn't write what the title was. So here's 125. Maybe I've got too much time with the book. Here's 120, 118. This is where I start, 120, 118. So I'd say page 118, number 2. Okay? And everything on this page is similar in difficulty. So then I'd write that down here. Then you know what they're drawing, and they know what they're drawing, and you can go back and look at the book and kind of reference it. And you can see what's going on. So we won't we won't center this yet. For this exercise, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to sketch it. So I don't even care the first go round if these guys have a title block. I'll just ask them, go ahead and sketch the right side view. And then of course, you're explaining to them that this is the front view, this is the top view, and this is the right side view. And that's the way it'll always be, front, top, right side. That's the way that you'll see all your drawings, front, top, and right side view. Front, top's missing, right side view. Okay? And I'll show you how to get this right side view here shortly. But you can tell them for number 2, go ahead and sketch just the right side view. Or I'm sorry, for this one would be the top view. So they can take a look in the book and they can see that your front view is going to be all of this. And this. There's that and that. And it's got numbers that correspond with the intersecting lines that allow them to see that. So if you had your three-dimensional object, you see the width, you can see the depth, and you can see the height. But when you lay it flat, no longer can you see how thick this or the depth. You can only see the height and the width. And that's a two-dimensional view. That's an orthographic drawing. Okay? An isometric is three-dimensional views. So what you're doing, you're trying to teach them to visualize what this part looks like from the top now. All right? You can ask them to draw a basic sketch. Sketching is always freehand, and then we don't ever freehand a draft. Everything's used with our scale and our T-squares. So that's my basic. And they just copied it right out of the page. Okay? And then this other one has got this here. And it looks like it's got some hidden lines. Hidden lines across there. Okay? And you can explain to them what a hidden line is. That hidden line shows this part, number 4 here, because you can't see that from the right side. That's why it's short dash line. So we have a lot of hidden lines in your drafts for holes. You see a hole, but you can't see the hole inside the part, they'll draft it as a hidden line.
Okay.
And it just gives the maker or whoever the end user is an idea that there's something inside that part that can't be seen from that view. So the next thing you'll want them to do is go ahead and sketch a top view. And if they look at this, they can go, okay, so the top view would be like here, here, here. That's 4 squares and a big square. So they can take all of these points and draw them straight up. So this would come straight up here, and that would come straight up, and that would come straight up, and that would come straight up. And I can kind of just erase this out of the way. Okay. Because if I take this block, and this is my width, and I fold it up and look directly down, the top has got the same exact width. That doesn't change anything.
Okay.
So that's the reason why we try to keep those lines straight. And when I draft that later, I can show you that. All right. So we went back and we looked at our isometric view, which is our three-dimensional view, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So that means that it's got to have a back here, okay? And then it's going to have a front, and then it's going to have line here and here, and that's my top view. So if you've got coloring sheets for them, you can print offline orthographic coloring sheets, then you can give them some colors, and they can actually go and they can take that and they can color this part blue, and then they can color the top part red, and the other one white or green, and they can start to see the sides, you know. So if it was an isometric view, I'd color this all green, and this all green. I'd color the top blue, I'd color the front red. And it starts to show them the different things. Okay. With me so far?
Yeah.
So this is, so two-dimensional is ortho graphic. 3D is isometric. And it's just the different views. We see everything three-dimensionally,
Alright.
except for prints, blueprints. We see them orthographically. All right, so let's take that same piece and let's draft it. So at some point, you're going to want to teach them how to take these three views and center them in the drawing window.
Okay.
But for right now, that's not necessary, just to get them off and going. Because what you'll do is you'll overwhelm them. So a good starting spot a lot of times is just an inch over and an inch up. And I'm pretty sure that it will work. I got 4 3/4, I got 2 1/4, so that's gonna be 4, 6, 7 inches. So I'll have enough room, okay? So I'll get an inch over and I'll go an inch up. And that's just about where my line is. And as I draw that, I'm gonna do this in my, what's called a construction line. Come back here to page 25, probably when you got marked. All right, close. So I'm going to start with the construction line. Construction lines are never drawn in ink because you're using those to build your visible line. Your border line you drew on the outside, it's thick and it's the borders. Your visible line or your object line is the actual object that you're drawing. But you usually start by making light lines for construction lines. All right? So 4 3/4 by 2 1/4. And the bottom of my object is going to be here, super light, almost light enough where you can't see it. The left side of my object is going to be here. And the entire purpose for these two lines is so that I can develop this drawing this way.
Okay.
It doesn't go this way and it doesn't go down from those lines. And if we'd done the math to center this, then this would have a specific distance. And I would come over 4 3/4. So you'll have to remind them to use the 0 on their scale, not the end of the ruler. But 4 3/4. I like to put an inch between views. That's my preference. And then 2 1/4 is what's remaining. So that's going to be right here. If you had done the math, or if we had done the math, this distance and this distance would be the same. In other words, this item would be centered in the drawing window.
Okay.
That can come later, like I said, but I do want to make you aware of it. All right, so I've got 1, 2, 3 dots. Let's draw them up nice and light. This is my right side view, and I try to do all my vertical stuff at the same time if possible, but I can't always. Okay, so this is my front view, this is my right side view. So it's 2 1/4 high. I can go ahead and head in that direction. This line's not real visible for me, but this one is. I got 1, 2 1/4. And then got a little something. There it is. Here. Here. So I just drew this part as a square and this part as a square or as a rectangle. So I'm just developing it. That's all I'm doing. Okay. I can work on my front drawing first. I'm going to come over 1 3/8 and I'm going to come down 1 1/2 and then over 2. Okay. So over 1 3/8 and I just lightly roll my pencil. I'm going to come over 2. Those are going to be vertical lines. So I'm going to draw them all the way. Construction lines, super light. So light, in fact, that one I can't see. But just a little harder. Okay, so now we can start to see this develop, can't we?
Yes.
Okay, now it's starting to make some more sense. This is 1.1 inches, so let's come on back 1.1 inches. There's that mark. Once again, still kind of working with those vertical lines. I'm starting to look at, and this one does not come down much farther than halfway, so like I'm going to make this construction line, but I'm not going to make it all the way down, because I know that at some point I'm going to erase that anyway, you know.
Yeah.
And some of your students are going to mark this page all over the place, and that's fine. In the beginning, they're just trying to draw lines and measure, and you're hoping that as they progress, they're starting to get neater, more accurate. They can start to see the object better, how it's going to unfold. They can start to visualize that, and so they're starting to make less lines, less mess. So the drafting industry is like, they're very neat, precise people. And we're just using it to help us learn our students and for them to learn how to print read and measure. So, I mean, if they go on to become a draftsman, that's fine. We've got classes that's going to help them with that later too. Let's go ahead and let's make this 1.1 line, and then we'll come down. So I'm going to do 2 at a time. So here was 1.5 inches, and I'm going to slide this one over here, and I'm going to come up 1.1 inches for that one. So the 1.1 inches is going to stay. Since I know it's going to stay, I'm going to draw just a hair bit darker. I just made that line. Here's the one that came down 1.5 inches, and I made that slight mark right here. And it's only going to be here. It's also going to be here. So I can draw here, and then on this side, it's a hidden line. See it? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to get picky, but you don't have to be. What I do is I take my scale, I lay it on top of my T-square, right where it should be. And then I draw. I don't usually use my scale to draw, but I'll draw an 8 and I'll skip a 16. 8, skip a 16. 8, skip a 16. And I'll do that right across there, and it makes it uniform and neat. Now, since my scale's a little beat up, it doesn't look great. But it's got uniform, and I'm thinking about what I'm doing, and that's like half the battle for students. Cool. Not beautiful because I used the scale, but here's what I was looking for. You take a look at your hidden lines, see how they're dashed and uniform, and there's actually a guideline there that says there are a 30-second gap and an 1/8 inch line.
Okay.
So like there's a specific reason why I was looking for those numbers. Now I went a 16th because that was what we had. All right. So that's something you can introduce to students later on and become more particular. And insist that they try to do things a little more correct. So if the kid's running away with this and he's really good, say, okay, now it's time to try to draw these lines more perfect. And then you can give them an example. Now one thing I failed to do on this one, this line on the right side view is also this front line and this line on the front view.
Okay.
So while I had that T-square there, I should have drawn this line and this line. And that's called projecting lines whenever you bring lines across to more than one view.
Okay.
Line projection. I'm about to show you another projection line, but now that I can start to see we're clearing up things, I'm going to erase the things that aren't necessary. My less than great eraser. Okay? And now I can see where this is. And I can darken those back in to make them object lines, which are a little darker, whenever I get all done. Okay, so once again, There's a white eraser. They do a better job. All right, okay, so top view. Like the whole reason why we're here is so that we can see how the top view starts to develop. Everything's a projected view, all right? So I'm gonna project all of these lines, 1, 2, 3, and 4, straight up. Well, I kind of did that whenever I started drawing, all right? So that was step 1. And I'm gonna bring this, which is my depth, okay? So my depth is from here to here. That's how thick my object is. Width, depth, thickness in our case, right? And then back to width, and then thickness here. So our top view shares depth with our right side view. And there was a good glass box diagram here that shows this pretty good, where it shows how to manipulate that piece in your hand and rotate it, and you can see how the depth here is the same as the depth there. Okay. And that will help you quite a bit. Clearing up any?
Yeah, it is.
Cool. So let's go ahead and let's project this view. Coach Turner likes to use this method here. He takes a 45-degree triangle. And this is in the book, I'm pretty sure. Where the top right-hand corner of your object is, you'll shoot a 45-degree projection line. Nice and light. Okay. So let's say it was this object. And so you would have to establish your top right-hand corner as the intersection of this line and this line. Then you would shoot it off.
Carry it over pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course you would erase it later.
Yeah.
But this is going to help you project this view. I don't need to measure anything else at this point because everything's going to be just moved up to it for me. So these lines are already up. Okay. You see how this vertical line intersects my 45-degree line?
Yeah.
So is this one, and so is this one. And I'm not going to draw them entirely. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to touch them off. Here, and here, and then that one was already done for me, so I'll just get rid of that. And I can actually get rid of this. Now, 45 degrees, anything that's 45 degrees is part of that square, so anything that's square like that is going to go up and over and transfer nice and easy. And so I'm going to go ahead and where my mark was there, I'm going to drag this line across. Where this mark is, I'm going to drag this line across. And where this mark is, I'm going to drag that line across. So it's a head scratcher at this point because we've got all this grid work up here. Let's erase what's confusing. Well, we know that this is my front view, and my front view and my top view are not going to touch. Okay, so we're going to get rid of that. That's going to be the first thing that's going to help me. Yeah, okay. So I go back to my drawing and I start looking. 1, 2, because we sketched this earlier, 3, 4 squares. 1, 2, 3, 4. But this middle area, it doesn't have a line through it, so we can get rid of that line. And you basically made your top view by projecting it up and over off your right side view.
Okay.
And these other pieces where it says gives you your top view and your right side view, you just project them over and down. For this one, which is exactly what we just did. Okay, so how about here's a right side view. Gives you your top, gives you your front, shoot your projection line up, and then shoot these lines over and down. And these lines right here, every intersection is a line that gets shot straight over, and it will develop the views.
Okay.
Keeps them lined up too. See, this here's a common base, and so does that. This one's not lower than that one, because that's not how it's supposed to be. And then to finish out my work, I would come in here, I would find that construction line, and I'd start to make an object line. Do all my horizontals first. That horizontal was already pretty dark. That line,
That line's not bad. So all I'm doing is establishing my construction line, or I'm sorry, my object lines. And then this line's not too bad.
Okay. And then we'll take our square and we'll walk through it.
And we'll do all our work for our construction. Our object line's vertical. That's a vertical line.
And this is where the kids can learn how to get nice and neat. That's not necessary, so I'll erase it. And when I score them on neatness. That's one, but it's not my critical factor. I score them on the correct measurements, the correct views, the correct lines. So that's how it goes, and then you go ahead and just erase this. Coach Turner has them leave this, but erase it from the parent piece so that he can see that they used it.
Okay.
If you do this method right here, where you use this projection line, then these items will almost always be the same. Even if this one's a little off, if you project everything, it's going to look like they're all going to be the same. They're all going to be a little off, which is unfortunate, but they look better. You know, if you measure each of these out and don't project, it's going to take you a lot more time. Okay?
Okay.
So, does that help there?
Yeah, that does.
Cool. Let's flip it over and do some round stuff. We'll do the math on this one. What did you guys cover this week besides measuring?
We measuring Monday and then put them on some Cengage stuff and watch some safety videos Thursday.
Cool. So you only had them Monday and Thursday?
Yeah, I didn't go to school Friday.
What about Tuesday and Wednesday?
Tuesday and Wednesday was some Cengage stuff on my
Cengage. Gotcha. What's Cengage? That's that stuff that you went to the course for?
No, it's an online curriculum.
Oh, okay. Cool. So there's our title block and our border. Pretty quick. And then what we're looking for, I do this after maybe a week, or I might see that kids are doing well and I push them into it right away. So what we're doing is we're centering the views. Front, top, and right side view. Basically it's a box and you're trying to locate its center or central of your paper. So if I had little block, I had big block, I'm going to put little block on top of big block and make sure from left to right it's the same, from top to bottom it's the same. I don't want it over here. Okay. So we're learning how to center things. Like you're centering the window in a wall. You know, you got to measure the center of the wall and then work outward every time.
Yeah.
And that's how you build it up. It's the same thing right here. Okay, so we have to know what we're working with. Usually this is like 10.5. So I have 10.5 inches. And I'm going to subtract my width plus my depth plus 1 inch. Okay. And then I would divide it all by 2. Okay. So
Divide by 2, you said?
divide by 2. And I'll show you why here shortly. Height usually is 7 5/8. So that one blows them for a little bit because it's not in that easy half. Minus height plus depth plus 1. Divide it all by 2. Okay. So this is left to right. And this is top to bottom. Okay. And we're basically forcing them to do some math. Punch out the calculator if they want, but and a lot of them do, and that's fine. They know how to use a calculator, and they've got these fraction things. But it's also something that I ask them to do longhand first, just for some mental agility to think about how to do fractions. Because if you're like me, you've laid out windows and doors before, and you don't break out your calculator to figure out the center. You go through, you measure, you do the math in your head, you work through it on the 2x4, and then you're like, okay. You know, so some of these guys that are on a roof, they're trying to figure their stuff out. They're not going to have a calculator in their pocket most likely. So it's good for them to have some mental math skills, or at least do it longhand. So let's pick this item over here, this round one. And what it's good for, it shows them what a radius is. And you can just, so these are discussion points. You know, a drill makes a circle. If it's a diameter, it's going to say drill, or it's going to be given to you in a diameter, but never a radius. Like if you see this one, it says ring, so that's something we talk about. That's a smooth hole. There's your drill. You know, here's your radius to the outside edge. Talk about all of that stuff. So we'll take, and I'll ask them to find the width, depth, and the height of the object number one. And they'll say it's 4 1/8, and then they'll have to add this radius right here. Okay? So it's going to be 5 3/8. And then I'll ask them to plug it into the formula. So that's going to be 5 3/8 plus the depth. At this point, we know where to find the depth. It's in the right side view because the top view is not available. The depth is 1 7/8. So we'll go ahead and we'll have 1 7/8. And we'll have to add in our extra inch for the distance between views.
Okay.
All right, that's where that inch comes to be. And then, of course, 10.5 minus that. So make it do it, you know, 5, 6, 7. And then 3/8 plus 7/8 is going to be 1 1/4. Because we know that that's going to give me, if I did 3/8 plus 7/8.
And 2/8.
Yeah, 808 and then 2 more 8s. Okay, good. If they want it like the improper fraction style, that would be 7 plus 3 is 10 over the common denominator 8. And then 10 divided by 8 is 1. And then 10 minus 8 is 2 over 8. And then it comes out to 1 1/4 like you said. So this is 8 1/4. So now we have it at 10.5 minus 8 1/4. Okay? So we know that 10 minus 8 is 2. A half minus a quarter is a quarter. So that's 2 1/4, right? And now we have to divide that by 2. So what I found whenever we added this all that and subtracted it is we found the distance between this and this. Okay? But if I want to center it, I need to go ahead and I need to divide it by 2. That's going to give me equal shares on both sides. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. Okay? And then any fraction on the scale, period, if you want to divide 1/4 and you want to cut it in half, keep the top number and double the bottom, and it works on every fraction on the scale. And it's a simple way, no thought. Half of 5/8 is 5/16. Half of 7/8 is 7/16.
Okay.
Half of 7/16 is 7/32. Half of 7/32 is 7/64. I mean, it's just so simple that I never learned it until I started teaching.
Okay.
And I'm like, what? Every single one. All them years of dividing fractions. And for a scale, I can't say this for every fraction out there, but for a scale, keep the top, double the bottom, and all of a sudden you've got it divided in half. So back to this, we said 1 1/8. So this is what it's doing for us here. Here's 1 1/8, right there. All right. And I'm gonna leave my scale on here, and I'm gonna plot all of my vertical lines without moving my scale. So I got 1 1/8, and I slid it back to 0 from my starting spot. I said the width is 5 3/8. That's here. I have an inch, which takes me to 6 3/8. And then my depth was 1 7/8. So I can't mentally do that real easy, so I'll just slide it over here to 6 and move it one time. And there's my 1 7/8. And the result between my border and here is 1 1/8, just about. It's a 32nd off, probably because I didn't measure these border lines. Okay. So that means that I've centered this view correctly. Yeah, I have equal distance over here and here. Set this right here. Construction lines are light. So they can do a quick check, measure from here to here, here to here. If everything's right, they're going to be the same. If it's not, if it's way off, then they can reassess what they did wrong. Go back to their math. So we're always teaching critical thinking skills in schools. This could not be any more critical. Like, you are going to develop how this comes out, and then you're going to evaluate how it did. And if you're correct, kudos. But if you were not correct, then you have to critically assess what you did wrong to get to that point. And you have to go back and erase lines and figure out what it was in your math or where to, and you can watch kids as you're teaching. You're going to watch them do the math, and they're working through it on their calculator or on their paper, and they'll do it, and they'll get frustrated, and you can see it, you can hear it, and then all of a sudden they'll be like, ugh, like literally an audible, ugh. And then you know, boom, he got it. Like, I walked over to kids before and I'm like, you need to, and he goes, oh, I just figured it out. I'm like, cool, and just roll on. Because he's got it. So that's a really good moment. We need to do height. So our radius from center to here is 1 1/4. That means our radius from here to there is 1 1/4. We double it, we get 2 1/2. Okay, so 2 1/2 plus 1 is 3 1/2, and then we have to add 7/8. So that's 4 1/2 plus 7/8. So I did this. And then I'm going to add 1 7/8. So 1, 2, 3, 4 1/2 plus 7/8 would be 5 3/8. Okay, that's the combination of this distance plus this distance plus this. Okay, so 5 3/8 is what I said, and so I always tell these students, and this is the truth, like I do my math like 5 times. I'm not a math man. I know the process, but I make mistakes consistently, and so I do math over and over in my head to make sure I'm correct. Estimating a building, for me to build, I'll lay that spreadsheet out and work through it 3 or 4 times to make sure I'm pretty close to like consistently getting it right. So teach them that doing things multiple times is a really good thing. It eliminates mistakes. So, once again, 1, 2, 3, 4 1/2, and then that's going to be 4/8. So that's 5. 3/8 will be left over because 4 and 7. That would be 3/8. So 5 3/8. Cool. So the 10 1/2 minus the 5 3/8. All right. 10 minus 5 is 5. 1/2 minus 3/8 is 1/8. Divided by 2. So that's going to be 2 1/2 plus 1/16. And that's going to be 2 9/16. Teach them how to flow like that. I mean, and so in math we learned how to do it like so organized that it was painful, and then we fought it, but now as an adult I see why it was important to be so organized. Remember long division, how you had to drop the remainder and break it down?
Yeah.
It was like mind-numbingly kill you. But now you're able to go back up here and go, oh, I made my mistake up here. It just makes sense for us. All right, so teach them that that's good, and do that on the board. And if you are smarter than I am, you'll do it at home the night before, and then you'll have a paper in front of you, and you'll write it out on the board as you go, and you won't make a mistake that way.
Okay.
But if you're like me, then you'll write it out real fast, and you'll screw it all up, and they're like, hey, you got your math wrong, you dummy, and you have to go back through and fix it. I mean, one or the other, you get the job done, but it does help as a young teacher to be prepared in that way. So 2 9/16 is the distance from the bottom. So we'll come up, 1, 2, and then here's my 9/16 line. And you're going to be really far up on the page, and your first thing that you're going to be worried about that. So that doesn't make sense for me to be up that high. Just simply put, and that's why. Now that I go back up and I look at my flow, 10.5 is not what I should have subtracted this from. The distance from here to here is 7 5/8.
Okay.
So I can look back up my math and I can see that there was where my mistake was. I should have had 7 5/8 minus 5.5. That would have given me 2 1/8 or 1 1/16 when I'm all done. So that's divided by 2. I get that.
Okay.
Simple, easy mistakes. If I would have followed my formula that I've written, I wouldn't have butchered it up. Okay, so I come back down here. Let's do one more time. There's 1 1/16. That's my bottom line. Light construction lines. That's super light. Okay. This one I made the mistake with earlier. I don't have to trash my whole print because I drew light. And then I'm going to come up this 2 1/2. 1, 2 1/2. That's the top of my object. And once again, now this time, I'm going to start picking my pencil up in this dead space. This is the no draw zone. It's the space between views. There's not supposed to be anything there. Okay, and this is my bottom, so I can erase this a little bit. Now, for anything circular, you have to find the center. So really, whenever I found this left and right, what I did was I found this and this,
Okay.
which I had to find so that I could find the center. All right.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. So now I can take something like this. These are cheap down at Ace Hardware. Set your compass just like this. Lock it down. You may have to put a little shim in there. Compasses are nice because you can make repetitive measurements with it. So I can go ahead and set this to that 1 1/4 off my scale. And I can do that. And I can do that. And that's the center of my circle. And I can turn right around, same measurement, and my pencil should touch here, touch there, and touch down there. And it's not perfect, so we can go back once again, reevaluate. And maybe this line was a little high, so that's okay. Just get rid of it. Let's take our tangent line. There's something you could teach them. Tangent line touches the bottom of the circle or the top of the circle, but it does not intersect. Or, I'm sorry, maybe doesn't pass through. Tangent line is a line that's going to touch the top of that circle, but it doesn't pass through.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to be over here to, a tangent line. And I'm getting this double line feeling here, so I'm teaching kids, go back and check. I mean, is this thing 2 1/2 like it's supposed to be? Yeah, it's 2 1/2. really close. So let's make the circle. It's a 1-inch drill, so you'll need a 1/2-inch hole. These are really hard to get a half inch out of. There's circle templates out there that you can buy probably at Hobby Lobby. It has all of the holes that you need.
Okay.
They're green, and they'll allow you to just have a hole to make. Buy multiples. Nobody likes to share. See how hard it is for me to do it?
Yeah.
This. Okay. That's what I don't like. Okay. Now, I've got one more circular item to make. I've got this 1 1/4 radius. So it goes off the upper right hand corner. Let's just set our compass right there. We've got to set it at 1 1/4 inches. You set your compass to the R. Alright? So if you have a hole, you cut that measurement in half to set your compass to. If you have a diameter, set it to half of what the measurement is. For a radius, you set it to the measurement. So it's right here. Take it out. Okay. Front view is now developed. Get rid of this. Get rid of this. Take my 45-degree triangle. Make a projection line. Here, I don't even have to really take it up too far. I just need it to make contact here. So while we're moving up the page, let's go ahead and let's project these lines over here. See how you've got 2 hidden lines? And that line gets projected over there? Let's go ahead and do that. These are center lines also. So I can go ahead, if I want to, I can knock those out too and make this look like nicer. You can get some of your good kids to do this. That's a center line, and that means it's the center of a hole. This is the same thing. Okay. The hidden lines are going to come over here. The bottom of my hidden lines right there. You can drag or you can push. It's up to you. Sometimes it's easier for me to drag. Other times I push. It seems like I get a little cleaner work when I push my pencil, but sometimes I don't. Come on up. This one on the right side is going to be a visible line. And the center line that's right here would usually be shown over here. The visible line takes precedence over the center line. It trumps it. It's the bigger of the two lines, more important. So, draw it. Come to the top of my circle. And go ahead and give me more hidden lines. 8th dash, 16th space. Try to make it even. You're looking for consistency. Right side view's done. Clean it up a little bit, just to make yourself feel better. Okay. And now, let's project the top view, which was the whole idea here. I should have a rectangle, even though this is round, and I can see that it's round on the paper. From space, I can't see that. If I'm flying over an airplane, I'm looking straight down, it's going to look square. I can't see the depth or the curvature of the earth, unless you're really high. Okay, so go ahead and there's my line, my projection mark. Draw it straight across. This is going to establish the depth here. Draw it straight across. Take my square here. 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 Hidden lines.
center line, long, short, long. That tells me there's a hole going through this view that you can't see unless you look at the front or the top view. Erase what I don't like or what I think is unnecessary. So you've taken and you've drawn your views. Now, the result should be 1 1/16 here where we started. That's about right. And up top, I got it 1.25 inches. So, we're 3/16 off. Let's see, 3/16 off right there. So you would wonder what the deal was there. There's 1 inch there. This one's at 2 7/8. I'm sorry, 1 7/8 thick. This is at 1 7/8 thick. That's a 1/4 inch line. That's a 1/4 inch line. That's a 3/8 line. Paper's 8.5. Okay. But you would notice that difference if you started measuring and you try to go figure out what was wrong. Like if this was student work, I'd go, hey, nice job. Go back through and figure out why this line, why this distance from here to here is different than here to here. Go sit back down and measure this all out again. Don't redraw it. Don't get panicked. Just go back and tell me why or where you're off. Other than that, it looks like a really good drawing. You've done a good job. This looks nice and crisp. We can get a little bit better compass work. Our compass work here needs to get better. And don't let them come in here and try to freehand doodle it in. Just tell them let it be. You know, we're not getting worked up about that. Tell them to go back in and make their visible lines darker and more uniform. And then tell them, go back and figure out why it's off. Well, I don't know why it's off. Well, I know you know that. Go back and sit down and just sit and look at your scale for a little bit and try to figure it out. And then we can figure it out together. So they've spent their 40 minutes on that print working all the things you wanted to. Measuring, print reading, neatness, critical thinking, problem solving, all the stuff that we always worry about with school and education. It's right there on that paper. But it's technical. It's not an overwhelming math problem. It's something they actually got to do and put their hands on. And so they are more appreciative. The good ones are really appreciative. The ones that aren't will never be. It's just the way it is. But what you need to do is pick a spot in the book that you would call your target. Let's just call it our target. I want all my students at this point before we move on. So I always started here. I said, draw this one. They took off and run it. Some kids stayed right here. And I'd say, okay, you're struggling. Let's say you're good. Go here. Any on this page. Give them a choice. There's 8 of them. Draw one. Okay. Oh, you did a really good job. Go here. Oh, you did a really good job. Let's switch it up. Now, pick one on this page. Or on this page. Now, they're not giving you what the front view looks like. Now you have to interpret what the front view looks like your own self by just looking at the isometric view. So what you're doing is what they call differentiating instruction. You're forcing the kids that are good to continue and be challenged. At some point, a really good kid's going to hit a wall. It was usually on this page with one of these items. That one's a half scale. So they had to take all their measurements and cut them in half.
Yeah, that's what's up.
Yes. So they were like, boop. But I had 2 or 3 kids every year that would be challenged enough to do this. Meanwhile, it's normal to have kids still struggling with this first one. And if they're working towards it, you're helping them. And if they never make it off this page, that's okay. But your goal should be for the whole class to be able to do one off of this page and one off of this page. This one's going to present a whole new level of difficulty for the ones who struggled here.
Okay.
But be so super simple for the ones that are over here. But you want to be, so, I mean, in terms, it's basically called normal distribution, where you have the majority of your people right here in the middle. And that's kind of where you want to land before you advance forward. And then I'll be honest with you, you're going to find some.
Pretty much from start,
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah, start right here and push them. You know.
And, we talked about how do the project and lay that out.
Mhm.
That'd be probably more the half scale or full
Yes.
scale because it would. That's what like I was more like. This is a lot more understanding for me too.
So let's pull that up. Check it out. So this is clear as mud now?
Yeah, I understand that a lot more now.
Okay. So they're working in this book.
No,
Oh, okay.
this is just a project book that was there.
Gotcha.
I grabbed it.
Cool. Okay, so what's that? Perfect. So here's the nice thing. If you have paper that you can get to 16 inches, these boards are 2 feet.
Okay.
You could do a 1-to-1 drawing of that thing.
So would that
So I would-
only consist of the top view, or would you be able to fit all of them?
Okay. So if I was going to do a 1-to-1 drawing, I would make them draw that panel in an orthographic view. This is my front. I realize that it's just a rectangle. Draw a rectangle. And then take it and draw me the top view and draw me the right side. Okay.
Okay.
Like, you can do it on a piece of paper like this, do it half scale. So you have to do it quarter scale because 16 would give you 4 inches, right?
Yeah.
All right, so that would be good. But then on these panels, give them some more challenges. Make them lay out these holes, you know,
Like
like the nail holes.
the nail holes.
Well, you're not going to nail them.
Yeah.
You're going to screw them together. So you have to drill these first with the drill. So they'll only have to lay out those holes for drilling anyway. So have them laid out on their paper. And give them an idea of how to make. They've already done the drawing. You know, they need to have an intersecting line for drilling.
Okay.
But then you could also have them draft. See, if you have them draft the entire project as you see it right here, this is orthographic views, right? They're not really gaining any, they're gaining perspective on what it looks like, but they don't know what each individual part. So you have to take this thing and bust it apart and have them just draft the front board, just draft the bottom board, just draft the side pieces, which are the most difficult. If you see that, let's say in a year, you're doing this again next year, and you're like, okay, drafting a board is stupid. So I kind of feel like it is, but gauging by your students, drafting a board like that may not be stupid. They may need to do that.
Yeah.
So in a year, you've got better kids. You're more comfortable, and you say, okay, we're going to go ahead and draft this toolbox. But here's the deal. We're only going to draft the ends. The ends have the most detail. They're the most difficult. Every other board is processed the exact same way. Plane it, join it, rip it, cross-cut to length, assemble as needed. Like that's 1, 2, and the bottom's 3 boards that are just exactly the same. There's not really need to draft that out if you have skillful students, if you have students that have any clue whatsoever. But what you'll need to make sure you do is, if you're going to have them draft something so simple,
Yeah, I'm just saying for something.
but you'll have to sell it to them.
Yeah.
You have to listen. This is really important. Like even if it's a lie, it's just important. It's important because I want you to be able to have this and see what you've got. And if you sell it to them like that, they'll buy it, and they're going to build their skills to move on. But if you just go, well, you know, it's really not that important, but we're going to do it anyway.
There's all
Yeah,
concentration.
that's done. Yeah, they've checked out. Preston said it's not important. He's making me do it anyway for some stupid reason. They're going to complain to their friends. They're going to do that maybe anyway. But you have to sell them on that plan. the toolbox print that I gave you, plan that I gave you, is more detailed, and so the drafting will be more important.
Okay.
Plus it segues from, so you guys have done and you've achieved what I wanted out of this book. We're going to move into tools and safety. But I can only teach tools and safety. I'm not going to teach back to back to back to back days. We're going to cover the table saw today. Tomorrow you're going to start drafting your toolbox. And then while you're drafting your toolbox at different tables, I'm going to be over here at the table saw in groups of 5, and I'm going to run 5 people to the table saw. And those 5 people are going to be running their boards. They're going to actually turn the machine on. They might use the table saw or bandsaw or drill press. And I'm going to have a checklist, and I'm going to check little Johnny's name off as competent, or I'm going to say little Johnny's not competent. He needs to come back and visit me before I let him use the table saw. Those tables are still busy drafting this toolbox or catching up in here.
Okay.
So you've made your way from the classroom where you've been drafting for a couple weeks. They're bored. But you brought them out to the shop. They're doing the same thing. But now they're in the shop. Now they can see things. And they're running the tools. But they're still doing the same thing. They already know how to do it. They just have to stay on task to do it. And you watch them. You're watching the guy on the table saw, and when he shuts it off and you know he's done it right, and you're looking at the other kids, and are they working? Are they not working? Can you see them out of your peripheral vision? You know, you're managing that classroom. You're multitasking. Simple tasks.
Yeah.
But you can see it if John's jacking off over there. And you can stop the guy, the table saw, when he's done, and you can, hey, you need to fix yourself over there. And then you can go back to him. And so you're controlling 2 things at the same time. Knowing that, wow,
What is that?
I don't know, prehistoric beagle. Knowing that this guy that's operating the table saw is the most important thing.
Yeah.
So that's just a little classroom management. What kind of other questions do you have right now? I know, like, just gave you a full drafting course,
Yeah.
and you should draw each of these items at home before you go to school.
Yeah.
And then if this kid's doing this one, then you've already got this one done. He's having a hard time visualize what it should look like. Then you've got this. See how I'm peeling the tape off? I'm doing my best to not tear my print. Yeah. That's my goal. I want to keep neat work. And you can just flop this down in front of him or take it with you and you go, take a look at this. You got about 15 seconds to get an eyeball on this print, and then I'm going to take it from you. Because I don't want him just to copy off me. I'll go here. Take a look. Okay? You got 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Look at the lines. You see what you need? Okay, I'm going on. And then he's like, okay, oh, I was missing hidden lines. Oh, I was missing center lines. Take your print with you. But you need to do it first, so they know how to do it. You know, I've been making these hammers for quite a few years. And I ran this part the other day because it's the beginning of a hammer handle for the students that we're getting ready to do. Like, this is the handle, and they've got some sections that this will be cut off. They've got some other stuff to do on it, but I want to have one laid in front of them, or I want to be making one for them before they run into the problems. I want to have those problems solved before they run into them. Which is why once you find a good project like the toolbox, I just did it year after year for the freshmen. I knew there wasn't anything on that I didn't know about. I could solve those problems. Coach Turner does the same thing. You know the project in and out. It's easy. Kids, they'll get something out of it. What else you got?
I just wanted to transform the scale over.
Over the scale for here?
I mean, just didn't know if something so big get transformed into 2, 3, the top, side, and front.
Okay.
I didn't know if it'd just be better off to do one paper like the top view and the other paper the side and another paper.
Oh, I see. I see where you're at. No, I wouldn't.
Okay.
I would drop it down to a scale. And here's scales. Half scale, eighth of scale, 3/32 scale. These are all engineer rules. Here's a quarter scale over here. Okay. Now, I'm not real familiar with how to use these scales. It wouldn't take you long after reading because I saw you were on a reading chapter in here. What I would do is I just tell them to take all the measurements, list them out. This is 5. I have them make a list.
So I figured the most understanding for them would be a half scale.
Yeah.
Because they would,
That's true. Quarters cut in half.
yeah.
Okay. But have them do it. 16. There's 7, and then have them write full, and then have them write half, have them write quarter. Give them go on a chart. Okay, 16 and a half scale is 8, and then a quarter square is 4, and a half scale is 3.5. Okay, and then in a quarter scale, good God, I have no idea off the top of my head. It would be 1.5. It would be 1 3/4. Okay, it would be a quarter scale. And they can be punching it out on a calculator, just taking it and multiplying it by 0.25, everything. The decimals are going to pop up, so that would confuse them. But you could have them do a scale chart, like take your measurements, front, your width, depth, heights, 5.5. So that's going to be 2.5. It's going to be 2 3/4. 1 7/8. It's going to be half of that. I think. But you could just start knocking all that stuff down like that.
Okay.
So they go, okay, the 8 inches fits in my paper, Mr. Hobart. Okay, cool. Do your half scale. Okay. So you're gonna have your board is gonna be 16 inches, so it's gonna be 8 inches this way. And it's supposed to be 5.5 tall, so we said it was 2 something, So go ahead and make it that 2 3/4 tall. And then, so this is your front panel. Okay. Not a lot of detail in the front panel. It's just a rectangle. Go ahead and make your right side view of the front panel. Okay, this is going to be 3/4 thick, and it's going to share the same height. Go ahead and make your top view. It's just the edge of a board. That's all it is. But then if you have went farther and laid out where these holes are supposed to be evenly spaced, then you can give them measurements to the first line. And they have to now start laying out these little holes on the panel. You see what I'm at?
Yeah.
Then this transfers over here as a hidden line. Now, so that front panel got a little bit more detail, didn't it?
Yeah.
The side end panels, the same one. On that plan, the one that I shot to you online,
I haven't printed off.
it shows you how to lay out the ends. And it's not difficult, but you'll have to walk your kids through it multiple times.
Okay.
When they come up and draw a circle, and they lay their scale over, and it's a tangent line. So it's something you'll want to practice first.
Yeah.
You'll want to practice everything first. It'll make your class so much smoother. Even at 17 years, if I don't practice first, I have hiccups.
Okay.
It happens. Things go wrong. If you're well prepped ahead of time, it makes it so much easier. And I know it makes so much sense. But in a shop class, you've got so many things that could possibly go wrong. Like my bandsaw I used the other day, and all of a sudden my coolant pump's not pumping coolant. Like the whole lesson was the bandsaw and mixing coolant and making sure we run the coolant. And when I walked over there with a group of 15 kids, my coolant pump wasn't pumping coolant. And I didn't check it. And I know it's been going out for years, and I've been like nursing it along, but this year just crapped out of me. Now I was standing there like, okay, there's no coolant. Well, you should have coolant here. So you can, you can make adjustments and audibles when you get to the line, but long story short is prep yourself. But I would have them, just like I said there, your front panel. Back panel's the same. On this one, but on your toolbox it's not. On the toolbox I suggested you did, it's not. In fact, it's got a drawer too.
Yeah.
And the drawer is totally different. You could draw the drawer too.
Yeah.
You can have them, the ones that draw this quickly, have them start making their front, back, and bottom panel. And you're coaching them through that. And the other dudes that have been messing around, or maybe they're just slow, they're still drawing their front they're still drawing, you go and visit with them every now and then while you're managing your woodworkers, trying to encourage them to catch up so we can get them started here. And once one kid's going to go through and he's going to buzz all of these panels out, he's going to draw them, then he's going to cut them, and he's going to be like, what's next? Grab your piece of paper and lay out the ends. Oh, I'm going to go back to drafting? Yeah. Draft your ends now. So you put the brakes on him. He has to draft the ends. It's a challenge. And you're going to bring up the other students and get them working on the machines now. So it's this constant flow of stop and go, challenge. I'm not going to let you run away with the project. I'm going to pull you back in and make you do something a little bit different. I'm going to challenge you to do something more difficult. You know, that's how you teach it. That's how you keep one kid from finishing his toolbox before the other kid finishes his drafting.
Yeah.
And that's how you keep the really good kid challenged. And the kid that's struggling, instead of making him draw out the end piece, let him struggle for a day. And then walk by and have the template for that thing already done. Hand it to him, tell him, draw around it. Man, you did a good job drawing that thing. And walk on. And you fed him a little food, and he's happy because he's done. He don't have to struggle because he struggled drawing. He gets to go use the tools. And you made a friend. You threw him a bone. And the other kid's going to see that. He's going to think it's not fair. But you just look at it and you go, I mean, that's it. Like, it's true. It's not fair. Just walk on. You know that the other kid's fine. The kid that you just helped, you brought him a million miles. So you kind of leveled the playing field a little bit. Plus, it's a good way to keep your classroom managed if your kids can develop that line of respect. It's a good way to keep classroom management. You threw that kid a bone, he's going to either respect you for it or like you more for it. And you didn't just set him and make him struggle the whole time and ignore him. He's going to feel better. You might win a battle with him.
Okay.
Your week 2 or 3, your kids are going to open up a little bit. You're going to find out who's who. You know, you're going to have some dudes that are going to be a little bit more of an asshole.
Yeah, I've had those.
Yeah, they're going to open up a little bit. That's a tough one, man. Usually, if you can remain calm, everything's better. I'm not saying I've always remained calm. You've been with me for years.
I think I'm already sent for you to the office, so.
Right. That's going to happen. But you do need to separate the turd from the herd
Yeah.
and get that problem out so you can refocus on the herd. You know?
I know what you mean.
Yeah. The old cattle drive. They ate the cows that were a pain in the ass. They ate them on the cattle drive. Those are the first ones they ate because they were the turds. They separate the turds from the herd. They ate the motherfucker. I think I'm eating your ass. You're a pain in the ass. You're always wandering over here. You're never going with the rest of the herd. You're causing constant problems with this herd. You're getting eaten first. You're gonna feed me. So, I mean, and when those kids come back in, you got to let that sleeping dog lie, or you can revisit it and be like, hey, we got off on the wrong foot. Let's do better. You know, is there something I can help you with? You know, why'd you act like that? But sometimes you have to let those feelings simmer down, and you just passively ignore it, and you work with them. I'd say nothing else about it. It really depends on what I want with that student. You know, if he's one that's really, really difficult, and I don't seem to be able to build anything with him, then if he goes to the office or causes me problems, then I just make sure that he doesn't cause problems for everybody else. But if you allow one kid to be the root of a problem, you'll lose respect from your other kids too. They won't even really know that they're losing respect, but it will happen. So you do have to take care of that problem. You know, that's not easy. There's no perfect little solution for each one, except building relationships. That's huge. You know, build relationships, talk to them, work with them, know their first name. Like, this is week 3 we're going into, and I still don't know my students' first names. I have 25 in a class at this point. My usual numbers were between 15 and 20. Now I have 25, so it's becoming very difficult. And I'll know their name, but it'll take me longer.
Yeah.
But it goes a long way if you know their name. You know, and you could really just pick a couple of kids a day to learn their name, and like focus on saying their name to their face, and it will jog your memory. It'll help.
I know the names of more of the people have been more of a problem, the ones that are quiet.
It always happens. It always takes place. You know, that's just inevitable. Yeah. But anyhow, what else can I help you with?
That's about what I was more concerned about, the scale drop and getting them formed.
Cool. So, take this stuff with you. I don't know if you can make sense with my schedule, my chicken scratch. It's gonna help. And spend lots of time with them. I have the good kids start dimensioning too, drawing the dimensions, writing the numbers in.
Okay.
But I wait until I see if they're how good they are. But I'll have them start dimensioning also. You're keeping them engaged with the drafting. You're building relationships and rapport. You're able to see who's a jerk and who's not, right? You're able to see who's good, who's weak, who's strong. There's just a lot of things that I really liked about it. And then when you're bored, you're ready to shift, they're ready to shift, and you can go right on. So you're good here?
Yeah, I get I got an understanding of it now.
So here.
And that paper helped a lot.
Good. Here's who you need to order your lumber fluid.
So I got there's a guy named Larry Stratton.
Oh yeah. Mr. Stratman taught for 30-something years.
Yeah, he
What?
came to the building and
Good.